Well, here we are at the fear and loathing and lying stage of what is now a Trump campaign. That is the way Donald Trump campaigns. It's the way he always campaigns. That is what he believes campaigns should be about: fear and loathing and lying. And that is what every Donald Trump campaign will always be about. So remember what you're really watching tonight. Tonight, you are watching a preview of Donald Trump's re-election campaign if he actually runs for re-election. Donald Trump's very first speech as a political candidate was about fear. It was about fear of people crossing our southern border. They were rapists. They were murderers. They were coming here to rape and murder. And so there was Donald Trump trying to create fear of those people, trying to create hatred and loathing of those people, and doing it with lies. And so when he sees the Democrats threatening 2 weeks from now to win back the House of Representatives, to win control of the impeachment process, Donald Trump has decided to throw away the idea of trying to campaign on anything that he might claim, even falsely claim, as an accomplishment of his presidency. Donald Trump is not campaigning on his tax cuts for the rich and his giant tax cuts for rich corporations. Donald Trump is not campaigning on his illegal tariffs that are harming American agriculture and American industry. Donald Trump is campaigning as if his presidency hasn't even existed, as if his presidency has done absolutely nothing. He is going back to the formula that won him the Electoral College: fear and loathing and lying about people trying to enter the United States on our southern border in search of the jobs that American citizens won't do, in search of safety for themselves and their families, in search of asylum. Here is the pathological liar president's closing pitch to voters to try to preserve the congressional power of what has now become the party of liars, the Republicans. America and the world must be warned that every word you are about to hear from the President of the United States is a lie. Every bit of it.
And you know, what's happening right now, as a large group of people, they call it a caravan. Do you know how the caravan started? Does everybody know what this means? I think the Democrats had something to do with it, and now they're saying, I think we made a big mistake.
It's all a lie, and no one in that room with the president knows it. Of course, the Democrats had nothing to do with creating a movement of people in Central America so that Donald Trump could then use that movement of people as a campaign device to lie about, so that he could create more fear and loathing in his desperately fearful supporters. No one actually knows exactly how this exodus of people got started, but we do know that the numbers have grown because the President of the United States has drawn so much attention to it. More people in Central America have decided to get in the flow of these refugees, and they're doing that for mutual protection. The caravan is now estimated to be about 6,500 men, women, and children. In other words, it's the size of a couple of large American high schools. This is a group of people who, if they wanted to come to the United States to live honorably and work hard, would be an asset to this country and represent a grain of sand on the beach of our population. The United States of America has never in its history been threatened in any way by unarmed men, women, and children approaching our southern border. But Donald Trump believes that his voters have imaginations as wild as his and can be thrown into abject fear of these impoverished women, children, men, who at their current pace of walking to the United States could be about a month away from the border. Depending on what route they take, could be much longer than that. Because Donald Trump knows that the only thing his voters fear more than people from Central America is people from the Middle East. He's decided to throw them into the lie, that there are now people from the Middle East, as he puts it, Middle Easterners, walking among the Central American refugees. And so Donald Trump has thrown every fear-inducing thing he can think of into his caravan of lies. But Donald Trump's lies don't work for most Americans. They never have. Most Americans do not share the fears that Donald Trump's voters seem to share with him. That's why more Americans voted for Hillary Clinton than Donald Trump. But Donald Trump's voters can still win elections if they show up in the right places in greater numbers than the majority of Americans who do not share the Trump fears. Not one Donald Trump voter is publicly asking why they should have anything at all to fear at our southern border after 2 years of a Donald Trump presidency. They voted for Donald Trump to protect them from that fear. They voted for him to take care of that border, and now Donald Trump is trying to intensify that fear as if he has absolutely no control at all over the southern border. He is activating Trump voter fear, in effect, by saying the Trump presidency has been useless, utterly useless to them at the southern border. Loathing and hatred is the jet fuel formula for the Trump campaigns. Donald Trump wants you to know that he hates the same people you hate. If you hate Muslims, if you hate black people, if you hate anyone who lives south of the Rio Grande. But he knows he cannot come out and say, I'm a hater, I'm a racist, and he knows he doesn't have to. He knows he got the Ku Klux Klan vote without saying I'm a racist out loud. He knows he got David Duke's enthusiastic support without having to say I'm a racist out loud. But now Donald Trump is saying he is a nationalist. And that's something he's never said before. And there were reports indicating that he's actually resisted saying it before. Turns out Donald Trump was saving that word, nationalist, for the last 2 weeks of the campaign that could change his life, change his very existence as president day to day, take his powers away. And he knows that in America, the word nationalist usually follows the word white nationalist. That's what it's meant in the 21st century. Trump voters understand, David Duke understands, that Donald Trump has to leave the word white out of his use of the word nationalist. But when Donald Trump uses that word, he wants you to hear it as racist so that you will express your outrage at Donald Trump's racism, and that will actually help clarify for Donald Trump's followers, the racists among Donald Trump's followers, that he does really mean it as a racist message. That is Donald Trump's way of saying, I am a white nationalist.
They have a word. It sort of became old-fashioned. It's called a nationalist. And I say, really, we're not supposed to use that word. You know what I am? I'm a nationalist, okay? I'm a nationalist.
Donald Trump knows exactly why you're not supposed to use that word. And that is exactly why he is using that word. And by telling his audiences that he knows he's not supposed to be using that word, he is telling them that he is brave enough and bold enough to use the word. He is brave enough and bold enough to use a 21st century variation of the word racist because he wants Trump voters to know that he hates the people they hate. A majority of Americans reject all of this vile Trumpism, all of it. And rejecting Donald Trump's racist nationalism has been the unanimous mission of bipartisan leaders in American politics for a long time.
We've seen our discourse degraded by casual cruelty. At times, it can seem like the forces pulling us apart are stronger than the forces bringing us together. We've seen nationalism distorted into nativism, forgetting the dynamism that immigration has always brought to America.
To abandon the ideals we have advanced around the globe, to refuse the obligations of international leadership and our duty to remain the last best hope of Earth for the sake of some half-baked, spurious nationalism cooked up by people who would rather find scapegoats than solve problems is as unpatriotic as an attachment to any other tired dogma of the past that Americans consigned to the ash heap of history.
A politics of fear and resentment and retrenchment takes hold. And demagogues promise simple fixes. They start undermining norms that ensure accountability and try to change the rules to entrench their power further. And they appeal to racial nationalism that's barely veiled, if veiled at all. Sound familiar?
Leading off our discussion now, Jason Johnson, politics editor at TheRoot.com and an MSNBC contributor. Ruth Marcus, deputy editorial page editor and columnist at The Washington Post and an MSNBC contributor. And Ron Klain, former chief of staff to Vice Presidents Joe Biden and Al Gore and a former senior aide to President Obama. Jason Johnson, I have a feeling that if you'd shown Donald Trump that video of George W. Bush, of John McCain, of Barack Obama saying that would make him want to declare himself to be a nationalist all the more than he already did want to.
Yeah. I mean, look, Lawrence, I have a big announcement to make, too. I'm black, right? It's really obvious. You know, Trump's been a white nationalist from the beginning. The fact that he just announced it to, the world or a huge rally is just indicative of how much his appeal has really shrunk in the 2 years that he's been in office. He was able to dance around the margins for a long time by claiming, well, you know, I'm a progressive, or I'm this, or I'm that. He danced around it. But now he knows my core constituency, the only future that this presidency has is to be an explicit white nationalist and say it is us, this small 26% of the U.S. population that wanted him, against everybody else in America who actually wants a fundamental future that we can all benefit from. I'm happy that he's being this honest, because I think this is the beginning of the end of him having any sort of appeal outside of the maniacs who want to listen to him in that room.
Now, I think we can all agree that Donald Trump is the most ignorant president in history. But today, he used ignorance as a defense in an answer to a question. And for the first time, I actually have doubts about whether he is as ignorant as he claims. Let's listen to Jim Acosta asking him about the way he uses the term nationalist.
Just to follow up on your comments about being a nationalist, there is a concern that you are sending coded language or a dog whistle to some Americans out there that what you really mean is that you're a white nationalist.
I've never even heard that. I cannot imagine that. You mean I say I'm a nationalist? No, I never heard that theory about being a nationalist. I've heard them all. But I'm somebody that loves our country. When I say a nationalist,
Ruth, I'm normally the first to assume Donald Trump is ignorant of everything. His claim that he's ignorant of this controversy involving the word nationalist, for once, I find his ignorance hard to believe.
I was waiting for him to do his usual, you'll never find a less racist person than I am. Yeah, that's right. Kind of his usual thing. Where to start with this? He obviously is using that word for a very specific purpose. And it's obvious that even Donald Trump, ignorant as he may be, has heard the phrase white nationalist before and knows exactly what he's doing.
And Ron, it reads to me as a sign of real desperation on Donald Trump's part that he's being shown polls that say, forget about trying to run on anything you've done as president. Go back to whatever bomb you want to toss that you think will activate your voters.
Yeah, I mean, he's running a campaign as if his two chief strategists were George Wallace and John Lovitz. Mm-hmm. It's a unique combination of racism and lying that is over the top, even by Donald Trump's standards. And just stopping one step short of calling himself a white nationalist, the loudest dog whistle we've ever seen in modern American politics, coupled with the incessant lying about where he stands on health care, lying about a magic tax cut that's going to appear in the next 10 days, lying about riots that aren't existing in California. It's just a unbelievable combination of, as you called it earlier, just lying, fear, and loathing. It's a horrid campaign.
Yeah, and to that tax cut point, Ruth, it's so fascinating that they're not, and Trump is not talking about the tax cut bill that they put through. And the proof that they know it's a disaster is that he's talking about this hypothetical one that doesn't exist. It exists in his imagination. At first he said we're going to pass it before the election. Right. Then someone told him how the world works.
But there's a legislature?
Yeah. And so now he's saying, okay, we'll do it after the election. But in other words, his tax campaign now is forget about what we've done. if you reelect us, we will finally do something for you in taxes.
And it's not just the tax thing. As you point out, he does have some things that he could theoretically run on, right? There's not just the caravan.
He's proud of those tariffs,
There
isn't
is
he?
the Kavanaugh, right?
Yeah.
But he is running as if he had not been, as you pointed out, he's running as if he had not been president for the last 2 years. And so all of that anger and resentment and all the other things that he marshaled in his campaign for president, he's summoning them all up again as if he is responsible for nothing in the last 2 years, including the caravan that is heading dangerously in our direction. And the fact that you have an actual tax cut to run on that you're not running on, and a theoretical imaginary tax cut that you're promising us you're going to somehow conjure and deliver before the election, is just the manifestation of that craziness.
And Ron, there were pundits saying immediately after the Kavanaugh confirmation that, that this Kavanaugh fight was bad for the Democrats. Obviously, it's some kind of political advantage to the Republicans. You would never know that if you listen to Donald Trump.
Right. He can't run on that because, by the way, he's suffering the largest gender gap in American political history. Women are going to show up, they're going to vote, and they're going to vote against Trump's candidates. He can't run on his economic record because he can't explain it. It really isn't much of a record for the middle class. He can't run on his tax cut that just went to rich people, and so he has to make up a fake one. And so, he is really back to his old tricks. But he's back to his old tricks 2 years into a presidency, and I don't think even some of his people are going to buy it this time. I mean, I think, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you. I think Trump is trying to fool people a second time. I don't think people are going to have it.
And,
Go ahead. Interject a note of skepticism here. I mean, it's nervous, and I don't want to have this skepticism. But if you look at the NBC Wall Street Journal poll, his ratings are the highest that they've been in the course of his presidency.
But that's a margin of error movement. It's
right.
And there is more enthusiasm among Republican voters than there has been. So,
but still not as much as the Democrats.
Still not as much as the Democrats.
Right.
But I don't know about you guys, but I'm a little nervous.
Let's see if Jason's nervous. Jason, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not nervous, and here's the reason why. One, I don't have my entire legacy on the line, which is what Trump has. That's why he's so nervous right now. He's already laying the groundwork for, hey, the Shaggy defense. If it screws up, it's not my fault. It's Paul Ryan's fault. It's Mitch McConnell's fault. But here's the thing. He is the albatross around this entire election. He's not on the ballot, but people are voting against him, and they're voting against his acolytes in Georgia, in Florida, in Wisconsin. If you look at the people who have allied themselves closest to Donald Trump, unless they were able to sneak through and get onto the Supreme Court like Brett Kavanaugh, those people tend to be suffering in the polls in a lot of different ways. And so, look, it's going to be a close election. Elections are always close. You got voter suppression going on. You've got last-minute October surprises that can occur. But by and large, he is a net negative for his own political party, and that's why he's floundering right now, and he can't keep on message.
We have to squeeze in a break here. Ron Klain, Ruth Marcus, thank you for starting us off tonight. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on the button below for more from The Last Word and the rest of MSNBC.